You're listening to Empress Conversations podcast with your host, Maggie Peary. Conversations with Maggie. Yeah, yeah. Join us next time on the next episode of Empress Conversations with Maggie. To learn more about guests or for more information on working with Maggie, go to www.empressconversationswithmaggie.com/get-started.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Empress Conversations with Maggie. Today, my guest is Allyson, popularly known as Ponte. She is recognized as a passionate leader in the fitness industry. She is a 30-year industry veteran and award-winning national fitness presenter and educator. She is founder and CEO of Vibe Fitness, Inc. and co-owner of Vibe Fitness Studio. Allie has an extensive fitness background, including management, program development, master training, and instruction, with a concentration in dance and choreography. Allie is a 5-year and counting breast cancer survivor and thriver. Welcome, Allie.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. Being that this is now nationally October Breast Cancer Awareness Month, do tell us your journey.
Well, I was diagnosed with breast cancer 5 years ago, and was surprised on one hand, but also sadly not surprised on the other hand. My father had passed away from cancer. My mom's a cancer survivor. My grandmother actually had breast cancer. And I think because of those things, I don't want to say was living in fear, but I thought, I figured eventually I would end up with cancer of some kind. And at the time, I didn't realize what a toxic mindset that was. I wouldn't say that I was a hypochondriac, or like a negative Nelly, but I definitely, those thoughts are not good for any of us to have.
That's right.
And I've learned a lot about that since then. My mindset is very different than it was back then. I came as a shock to a lot of family and friends and my community because I am a fitness professional and I have been, as you said, for many years. And people, I think in some ways, they would look to me like, well, how could she be a 1 in 8 statistic when she eats healthy, she exercises, and also if it could happen to her, there's that scare, like, well, my gosh, it could definitely happen to me. But my cancer was environmental, which is very interesting. So in many ways, it could have been preventable. And I just have learned so much about all of that, like through my journey, through the years following beating cancer. If you could even say, I am a breast cancer survivor, but I am not 100% certain that there is no trace of cancer in my body, which was part of my choice of the path that I went for healing.
Yeah. Allie, tell me, for the sake of just educating our listening audience as well as myself, as though I'm a 3-year-old, explain to me the difference between environmental, whereas you had 3 immediate family members who had cancer as well. So talk to us more about that environmental impact.
Sure. That's a great question. So I didn't know much about it myself prior to, and having the history in my family with close family members having cancer, I guess I thought that I was going to get genetic cancer. So once you find out that you have cancer, once you've been diagnosed, I don't know if it's required, but they do offer genetic testing, which I did. And I actually went for, they give you like different options for the genetic testing. And I wanted to learn as much as I could because my family members had different types of cancer. So once it was determined through this genetic testing, which is, the test is like you spit into a tube and miraculously they can tell you all of this, whether it's genetic or not. I know, it's pretty fascinating. When I found out it was environmental, I think I was part of me was angry, thinking if it's environmental, like, what have I done wrong? Part of me was confused. Part of me was relieved. Like, there were so many emotions all at the same time. So I learned that the type of breast cancer that I have or had was caused by the environment. And I later learned that there's so many facets to that. It's almost overwhelming. So when they say environment, it's not only what you eat and your lifestyle, which many of us would just assume that's what it is. It's the air that you breathe, the water that you drink, the water that you shower with. It's the toxins that you use on your body, from personal products like deodorant to shampoo to makeup. I was a big fan of scented candles.
I love them.
Yes, I burn them all the time for my own pleasure. I mean, often I would have one in my office when I was working just because I enjoyed them. And I didn't realize that I was actually releasing toxins into the air that I had been breathing in. I am not a cook. I'm good at some things. That is not one of my strengths. So I tended to use my microwave a lot. I didn't realize that I was microwaving the nutrition out of some of the healthier food choices I was making. I had been drinking plastic water bottles. Being a fitness professional, we would often buy cases of water bottles for convenience, keep them in the refrigerator. I'd grab one when I walked out the door. I didn't realize that those water bottles often sit on a truck in the heat, and the chemicals from the plastic leach into the water, and then we are putting it into our bodies. So even the healthiest brands of the cleanest water that we think we're drinking are actually adding toxins to our bodies.
Wow.
I loved incense, and incense was also releasing toxins into the air, into my home that I was breathing. I cleaned my house with the same things I grew up with that my mom cleaned the house with, all putting more chemicals into the environment that I was touching, walking on barefoot. I was cleaning my floors with toxic chemicals and then walk around the house barefoot all the time. We have our lawn treated, or we had our lawn treated, because my husband is obsessive about his green grass. And then myself and my children and our pets would walk outside barefoot, lay in the grass. Didn't realize that even after they say it's safe to walk on the grass, those chemicals don't just go away, and they're in the air. So, I mean, really, there's so many things that add to that, even down to the vitamins and supplements that I was taking, having produce that was not organic, that had been sprayed with pesticides, eating processed food. And even though I'm a fitness professional, it's not like my diet is 100% perfect. So I would go to restaurants and eat at restaurants, and pretty much almost every restaurant that you go to, there are preservatives and pesticides, because otherwise the food would rot faster than they could cook it and serve it. And then they would go out of business. So, going out to restaurants every weekend, I'm not a big drinker, but I did have wine occasionally on the weekends. It was not organic. And when you think about, think about an apple that has been sprayed with pesticides and then you rinse it off, then think about grapes that are much smaller, and they're all being sprayed with pesticides. And if they're not cleaned and then they're turned into wine, how many grapes make that wine? You're almost getting more pesticides in spices, coffees, teas, wine than you are if you just eat a straight up apple and do the best you can to wash it off. So I love coffee. I wasn't drinking organic coffee. So I was, again, intaking all of these pesticides and treatments. And I think initially I was kind of overwhelmed at, oh my goodness, I did this to myself. And it freaked me out. And also things that can aid to cancer are stress, lack of sleep, and being a mom, an entrepreneur, a wife. I definitely have stress. I definitely suffer from lack of sleep and lack of quality sleep. I've started several businesses, and I would work when my family went to bed, and I functioned really well in the wee hours of the morning when everybody else is asleep. And I would think, well, I'm just going to sleep a little bit later in the morning to make up for it. But I wasn't getting 7 to 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep. So there's so many factors. And I guess what I've learned through the years is that I have no regrets, first of all. Like, I don't regret. I feel like my diagnosis, although it was hard to go through surgery and all of the things, in many ways, it's a blessing because I've learned so much. It's allowed me to change the way that I live, and also the impact that has on my immediate family and close friends who've been inspired by that as well. A lot, including my very best friend, Kelly, who owns the business with me. She completely changed her lifestyle when I was diagnosed in support of me, and also just wanting to do right for her own body. So just knowing that, like, so many people that I love maybe they won't ever get environmental cancer, or their chances are lower because of something that I went through and they went through with me. I think that is, that's God's way of working through people.
Yes.
And, it all ends up being a very positive thing. So in my office, that's a sea salt lamp instead of a scented candle. And sea salt lamps actually help get rid of toxins. And now I've got, you can't see it, but right above that is an essential oil diffuser, which smells just as lovely, if not better, than a scented candle, but it's healthy. And I'm drinking, organic lemon juice. And I've changed so many things. I've really changed my lifestyle because of cancer. I ended up having a double mastectomy soon after.
Wow.
I was actually diagnosed with, this is interesting, I was diagnosed with stage 0 breast cancer, which meant I had one tumor that they identified that was a decent size, but they said it was self-contained. So all of my cancer was in this one tumor. And initially they told me I could have a lumpectomy and then possibly radiation. After a biopsy, typically the next step would be an MRI or some type of a scan. Well, when they did the scan, they actually found suspicious tissue in both of my breasts all over the place.
Wow.
And because of that, they said you would have to have so many needle biopsies. It would just be a lot. And that they may have to do quite a few like lumpectomies, and that you would be severely disfigured, that we can't guarantee we would get it all. So at that point, they suggested a mastectomy. And when I decided to do it, I thought, my gosh, like stage 0 and a mastectomy, like that just seems very aggressive.
Yeah.
But they told me it was my safest bet for the least risk of having a metastasized cancer in the future. So I decided to do it. And then along that time, I have a good friend. She actually is a fitness instructor. And I knew her from a gym. We had worked together. Our kids belonged to the same dojo. And she is a holistic practitioner. And she met with me and said, I'm happy to talk to you about some things that you can do from the holistic side to help, whether you choose to take any medicine or not. I can work with you either way. So she's the one that really helped me with my diet, my lifestyle. I got rid of my microwave. We got rid of plastics in our house. We use glass and stainless steel. I literally remember the day I walked around the house throwing all my very expensive candles in a bin, and I just threw them away because I didn't even want to give them to somebody else because I didn't want them to have problems too. Went through my pantry, got rid of a lot of stuff I knew was not good, threw my incense out. I went through all of our personal products. I mean, I literally cleaned house. And she just said, if you're going to do this holistic path, it's not you pick and choose what you want to do. You're fighting a deadly disease. Like, you need to do everything. So I did. And I talked to my husband about it. We made the decision as a family that I was going to do this. He was going to support me. And it just it really has been life changing. And I've learned a lot from Mindy. And, I will admit that during the first 3 years when I was actively fighting cancer, I was so good and I did all of the things. And then once I got over that hump, she basically says, and most holistic practitioners will say the same, it's kind of like an 80-20. You got to live a little, but, try to avoid things that are bad. And, when I drink wine, I make sure it's organic most of the time and I'm out to dinner and I just really want a glass of wine. I really don't drink often though. It's more of a special occasion, but, if my family orders a pizza, I'll eat, it's not organic, it's not gluten-free, it's not dairy-free. Like occasionally I'll have a slice of pizza. And when you start doing that, at least my experience is it's really easy to start going from 80-20 to 70-30, 40. And that is my own struggle. And I am recognizing when I start pushing too much and then I'm trying to get back on track. So that is kind of where I'm at today. It's a constant, I remind myself I'll always be a cancer survivor.
Yes.
And even though I just got cleared to not have to go to oncologists every 6 months, I did that for 5 years. Every 6 months, I would go to an oncologist and just have a checkup. And I chose not to take the medicine that they recommended 5 years ago. They recommended a medicine called tamoxifen, which is very typical for my type of breast cancer. Lots of women choose to take it. My grandmother, who had breast cancer, and her cancer was different than mine, she took tamoxifen. She had a unilateral mastectomy, and years later, her cancer did come back. It had metastasized even after taking the drugs. It was after, I believe, the 5-year mark. And at that time, my dad, her son, had also been diagnosed with a completely different type of cancer. And I think my grandmother at that point just didn't want to undergo chemo and all of these harsh treatments, knowing that her son was sick and that was probably not going to end well. So she just chose to live the rest of her life as best she could. And then she passed away. My father passed away when he was 57. My mom had thyroid cancer. She's a survivor, thank God. But yeah, so the crazy thing is, even when when you know that if you eat these things or if you do these things, these are going to help your health, your immune system, and all of those things. We're human. And we still can make the choice that we know is helping the disease. So now my train of thought is every choice I make is either feeding disease and cancer or starving it. And I have to make a conscious effort to starve it because I know for a fact it can grow inside my body. It already has. And after I had that mastectomy, that was my diagnosis at stage 0. I'm sorry, I jump all over the place.
You're fine.
So when I was stage 0, I had a mastectomy. I was home from my surgery. I still had drains. I'm all bandaged up. I'm trying to recover. I was doing okay. And I got a phone call 4 days after a radical surgery. And they said, it's not what we had hoped. The tissue that we examined that came from your surgery, although they told me they were 95% sure that they got all of it and I was fine. And that from there on out, it was just a matter of healing and taking care of myself. And I wouldn't need anything else. I didn't need to go to an oncologist even. They said, we're elevating you to stage 2 because we found it in your lymph nodes that we removed. And although it was microscopic, it's still outside of the initial tumor, which was a stage 0 because it was contained. So now you have to go to an oncologist. And this is after I had the surgery when I was, certain that I was going to be cured at that point. So now I'm home, with drains and surgery and dealing with all of that, and knowing I'm going to have to go through reconstruction, and that is a process. I did expanders. I don't know if you know about that, but they basically put these like flat implants inside under your pectoral muscle. And then once you're healed from your initial surgery, you go in and they continue to like inject them and increase the size to stretch your skin so you can get your implants down the road. And I'm going through that process. And now I have to go to an oncologist, which I never thought I would have to do. Wow. So when I went to the oncologist, they offered me that medicine. And at that point, I had been talking to my holistic, and she said, if you want to take the medicine, I support you. It's your decision. You have to pray on it and do what's right for you. If you choose not to take the medicine, I support you. And in either case, I'm going to help you if you want the help. And I made the decision not to take the medicine because I read all about it. And at the time, I was a pretty healthy person. I never even really took aspirin. I have a good tolerance for pain unless I am, my headache is absolutely pounding and I take an occasional aspirin. Like that was about it for the most part. So I didn't want to take a prescription medicine that comes with a whole bunch of possible side effects. And when I talked to the oncologist, I said, okay, so if I take this medicine, the side effects are it could cause secondary cancer, fibromyalgia, severe depression, forced menopause, like the list went on. And the oncologist said it could, but it may not. And I was actually in a Facebook group. I am in a Facebook group with only local women, like only women in Georgia who have had breast cancer specifically. And I looked in that group and I kept seeing that drug come up. And the stuff that I read was awful. There were so many people saying, I have this side effect, that side effect. My cancer returned. Now I have like a secondary cancer. And it wasn't all bad, but there was enough in just the few things that I read for me to be like, I don't want this. So I chose not to take it, which meant every 6 months when I went to the oncologist, it was just a checkup. And I can't have mammograms anymore because I'm completely fake. I have no tissue, nothing left. It's just pretty much skin and implants. So they just do like a physical exam. They feel, they look, they check my blood. They ask me a bunch of questions. And for 5 years, twice a year, they would say, everything looks good. And they send me on my way.
Well, thank God for that, Allie. Yeah. Let me jump back in because in the beginning, first of all, for our listeners, Allie is based in Alpharetta, Georgia, because you had mentioned about the Facebook group. So we'll get into, being in Alpharetta and the club.
I actually live in Cumming, Georgia. Yeah.
Thank you.
The Facebook group is Cumming, Johns Creek, Alpharetta, Roswell. It's all, all this area.
Perfect. I want to go back to, without calling any brands, when you mentioned all the environmental things that, we use in our body that we take in, and just the fact that I'm guilty, I drink tap water and my head was just exploding. I'm like, the things that we take for granted, the lipstick I'm wearing, the eyeshadow, all of these little things, and not to spread fear or do anything like that, because we're all adults, we'll make our own choices that suit our lifestyle and our family. But just to be aware of that, and you had to do all of this education to literally clean house and also clean your mind, because you had mentioned about what you were thinking and the way your headspace was, what you were attracting in another way. I don't want to minimize what you'd gone through, but the fact that it was in your family and you're kind of like, well, how did you make that transition? Because if it hadn't been for your friend who literally sat there and guided you through that process.
Really, for me, faith is at the top of everything. And I did a lot of praying, and I just, I prayed for peace. That was my prayer every day, was God, just give me the peace and understanding to make the best decisions for myself and for my family. And I was just covered with this crazy, almost eerie peace through all of it. Even the really difficult times, I felt like, when they say you just feel that God is walking right beside you through everything with you, I felt that more in that time in my life. I felt the presence of God and Jesus more than any other time in my life. So in many ways, it was miraculous. And I understood that I had to do something about and I don't want to say stress in a negative way, but as you know, like being an entrepreneur, just trying to get all of the things done and still take care of your family. I just have a different mindset of looking at it. Time is a choice. Where I choose to put my time and energy is really up to me. And my holistic was great about saying, look, you can't spin into a spiral of panic looking around your house and feeling like you're living in this poison environment, but you can do something about it. And knowledge is power. So rather than worrying about where you've been and what you've done, get excited about where you're going and what you can do. So there's a website. I think it's called, I'd have to look it up. I'll get back to you on that. But there is it's like a database that you can go to where you can put in your products that you use. Like, let's just say your shampoo. You can put the name of your shampoo in and it will give it a rating in toxicity. So I became very interested in that website and I started going through, and you can actually, if you wanted to find like a shampoo, you could put in shampoo and it will show you a list of the healthiest options and it rates everything. So you can see the one you're using versus some other options that you have. And then I would talk to my hairdresser who knows that I use all organic and she is knowledgeable on some of those things. And she would say, well, this really works for your hair type. And here are some options. And then I would go back and cross-reference on that website and I would pick the best one for me. So
we'll definitely put that in the show notes so that people can get access to that website. That's really good, Allie.
It's like, I want to say it's maybe EWG, but I will get that back to you. I'll give you the exact website address. So that's really helpful. And then it's just, for your average person who's not battling cancer or autoimmune disease right now today, my advice would be start with one thing at a time. Like maybe your first thing is this month, my goal is to get rid of toxins in my environment. So, or if you're money conscious, you could say, when I run out of this particular product, I'm going to replace it with a better, healthier option. So that way you're not like in a panic.
Right.
It's never good to panic. And that's really important because I understood that, okay, so on the one hand, I've got all of these products and things that I shouldn't be using. But on the other hand, fear and stress are only feeding the disease. So I need to find a way to make this better and also keep this in check. And it's all kind of a balancing game. And you learn from experience. So, maybe if it's a money issue, you just slowly start to replace things with better choices when you know. And one of the things too is like, once you know, you can't unknow.
Exactly, right? When you know better, you do better. You know, being a wife, a mother, and all these other titles that you hold, if I remember correctly, that was probably around the time your son was graduating high school or either.
No, he's actually graduating high school this year.
Oh, well, congrats.
Yeah, thank you. He's my son, he just turned 18. He's a senior, and our daughter is a sophomore and she is 15. So so my kids were younger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With that going on, with you being sick at that time, and your husband, I'm sure, had to cover a lot of things, but your kids' life still went on. I mean, they still needed school, they needed everyday things, and mom is sick. So what was that like? Because I'm sure family, friends, everyone rallied around you, but you're mom. You're still mom at the end of the day.
Yeah. I would say, I mean, I had an incredible amount of support from, my husband, my kids were young. But my own mom, my stepmother, our close family and friends, Kelly, my best friend. I mean, she was incredible through all of this. Like she literally walked beside me the whole time and still does. But I would say, like, honestly, God was so good through all of it. And I had very little downtime. Like I mean, I had my surgery, and 4 weeks after having radical surgery, once my drains were gone and I was still, I finally got the bandages off, but I had all of the, the scars and everything else, and I was still healing. I was back at the classes that I used to teach, but I wasn't teaching them, but I was taking them. But when I say taking them, I mean, literally, I couldn't lift my arms above like my shoulders. So I was just moving my legs. I was told that I was allowed to walk. So my response to my doctors was, well, if I could walk, I assume I can step touch. And and they said, look, if you can promise to go back, we don't advise you to go back to your classes, but if you can go back and keep it at the pace of a walk, just be good, behave. And I did. And I think at about 6 weeks, I was back to taking classes almost normally. And very soon after that, I already started teaching with modifications.
Of course.
Yeah. And I aside from those first few weeks having to have people, I wasn't even allowed to carry my own purse after surgery because there's so much trauma and you can't move your arms.
Right.
But soon after that, when I was able to lift like 3 pounds and I could carry my own purse, aside from like carrying a laundry basket or my dog or groceries, like that came within the first like couple of months. I was pretty normal. Like I don't think that we got a lot of meals during those first weeks. I mean, more meals than we could have even eaten by ourselves. Like it was amazing, the support. So, I think community is huge. Family is huge. God is obviously the best.
Yes.
I had all the help that I needed and then some. And I healed, I think because I'm into fitness and I was very healthy to begin with, I got strong fast and I got better fast and I healed quickly. And I was able to, and I needed to do the things that I do and love. And that was also part of my mental healing. So the faster I got back to the gym, it was all kind of helping with like my stress and
you're happy.
Yeah. So it all worked together. I hope that answers that question.
It does answer this question. And you know what, Allie? I'm going to try to give this visual of the woman that you are, because on a good day, Allie, you're probably 120, 119, a very petite, small woman, and in a beautiful, beautiful way. But when I met Allie through the fitness industry, so we were both instructors and I popped in and there we go. So long story short here, Allie is a very petite woman. But when she steps on a stage, you would think she is Beyonce or some Michael Jackson just packaged together, because even though physically you are huge when you're in front of teaching a class, and I've never seen someone who is just perfectly calm and natural and turn around and bust a Jeezy song like it ain't nothing. I mean, my chin was on the floor. I was just like, who is this woman and where did she come from? You are amazing, and you're truly living in your calling when it comes to dance. And it's like, that's really your ministry, because what you give to other people, what you give to your students, it just all comes from your hearts. We've both seen other instructors and been to different classes, but Allie, that is your calling. When you are in front and you are in teaching mode, you are just in a beautiful way, a beast.
You're making me tear up.
No, because it's the truth. I'm not saying this to flatter you. There are a lot of wonderful instructors in Atlanta, as we both know, but you are just one of a kind. So as I'm transitioning now, and hopefully we'll bring this back to the breast cancer connection, because you had a beautiful story that I once heard you tell about your connection with the number 11 and your dad and how Club Vibes started. Could you kind of talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. It's actually the number 13.
13.
Yeah, that's okay. It's 13. So my dad, his birthday was August 13th. And when I initially started my own business, aside from being a fitness instructor at lots of other big fitness facilities and small fitness facilities, I've been doing it for so long in many different places in different states. And when my dad passed, I started a company called Studio 13. And I was doing, at the time, I was teaching Zumba, and we were doing private parties and events. And I named it Studio 13 just in honor of my dad. And then from there, I kind of started creating my own dance fitness format. And part of that came out of I'd been a personal trainer and I'd been a fitness instructor teaching many formats for many years. Dance fitness was not the first thing, but it ended up being my favorite thing. So I had taught step and kickboxing, weightlifting, a lot of like very athletic classes, in addition to personal training. And one thing that I felt was missing from the dance fitness that existed at the time was really the exercise science aspect of it. And how can we make our dance fitness class be as effective as like a cardio kickboxing class or a HIIT class? So that's kind of where Club Vibe came from, was really just like taking studio style dance and then the exercise science of fitness and putting them together and creating like a very fitness forward dance format. And that's really where it came from. And I have no formal dance training. I did not grow up dancing. My parents got divorced when I was very young. Going to like a dance studio was expensive. It wasn't something. I took a couple of classes, when my mom was able to afford it, as a pretty much single mom for most of my childhood. But I always loved dance. And when I got into middle school and high school, they didn't have dance teams, but they had cheerleading. And I noticed that the cheerleaders danced. So I got involved in cheerleading because it was not free, but it didn't cost the same as going to dance training. And it was a way for me to get involved in dance. And dance was my favorite part. And I loved choreography. And I used to choreograph routines for my cheerleading teams. And then that continued through college. I ended up coaching cheerleading, doing choreography for competition teams. And the dance thing just always I guess I was always looking for a way to do more with dance. And then when I started teaching fitness, I actually was teaching a high-low class, like Jane Fonda-esque high-low, which was awesome. And I mean, I had the scrunchy socks and the Reeboks with the strap.
Love it.
The headband, all of it. But my high-low class got more and more dancey. And I remember my studio manager came to me one day and she said, let's just call a duck. Like, you're really teaching like this cardio dance more than high-low. She's like, what if we change the name of your class and like, just go for it. So I started teaching cardio dance before Zumba, before it was a thing.
Wow.
And I absolutely loved it. And that became like my favorite thing. And I just rolled with it. And then when Zumba came around, everywhere I taught wanted Zumba on the schedule. So I went and got trained, and it was great. And I love it. And I'm a big fan. But it just deep down was not me. I wanted more dance, and I wanted more choreography, and I wanted more creativity, and I wanted more genres. And that's really kind of where Club Vibe came from. Like, I wanted to feel like I was literally Beyonce's backup dancer, even though I have zero qualifications.
Yes, you do. You are very qualified.
Yeah. So the other thing too, for me and for Kelly, has always been, I think the way that we view it is, it's not about us dancing or looking a certain way. The joy that we get from it comes from bringing the dance out from the people that we are blessed to do it with and for. So like seeing somebody in our class who comes and says, I have zero dance experience, I cannot do this, there's no way. And then watching that transformation over weeks and months and years, and they go from the back row to the front row. Some of them even become instructors or go on and do great things even better than we're doing. And like, to me, that's really where the joy comes from, is just to see you don't have to be a dancer. You don't have to have experience. You don't have to have rhythm. Even to do dances that have a little bit more moves and choreography than like your typical traditional cardio dance class, it's exciting. And you know, we're actually, it's October. We're getting ready to do a thriller performance as part of Relay for Life for Cancer event in our local area. And like, it's just amazing to see how many people want to learn thriller and they want to do it. And if I had $1 for every person that said that they want to do it, but I'm not a dancer, I'm like, you don't need to be. You know, we're zombies. So pretend you're dead anyway. And if you go the wrong way, it's part of the act. It's all good. But we have children doing it. My mom is doing it. She's 75 years old with 2 knee replacements. We've got some individuals with special needs who are doing it. And like, for us, it's everybody is invited. Everybody is welcome, whether it's an event like our thriller performance, or it's coming to our studio or doing our live stream classes. I mean, it's truly, it always has been, and it always will be for us. It's an open invitation. It's never about, like, we want to get rid of the barrier of what your brain is telling you you're capable of, because really your brain is just filled with thoughts, and thoughts aren't necessarily truth. It's a truth that a lot of the thoughts in our heads are lies that, you know, we've been told by the outside world and even ourselves, and it's not necessarily true. So, you know, we want people to feel like they can come. Our studio and what we offer, it's a safe place for everybody, always. And everyone's welcome, and everybody is loved and accepted just the way they are. Like, it just to give you a picture, my mom, again, 75 years old, she comes to my regular Club Vibe classes, which you've been to, which can be a little crazy. And she's so cute. Like, she's just over there dancing around in circles. And every once in a while we do, you know, we'll have a hip hop song. She calls it the hip hop. And she'll say, well, Allyson, I just don't care for the hip hop. But then on the same playlist, we'll have Rockin' Robin or, you know, Wings by Little Mix, and those songs she loves. So we always try to just have a lot of different things to appeal to everybody. And whether it's somebody with special needs in our studio, or somebody that's, you know, older, like my mom is a great grandma with the knee replacement, or it's like some young person who grew up dancing who just wants more, you know, like, everybody's in the same community, in the same room, at the same event. And we're all just like side by side doing this together, just filled with love and joy and peace and having fun, really. And being healthy at the same time. So
indeed.
That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, Allie, so talk to us about how the evolution of the business, because naturally in your path, you went from being an instructor, you got your license, and you started your own program, and now you have your own studio. So with the recent episode of COVID and everybody having to, all that stuff we went through, a lot of people in the fitness industry, large gyms, a lot of places closed down. What kept you going to where you're able to open up again and keep business? You know, you've been on the news, you've you've had lots of media coverage. How did you keep that going on the business end to where you're still surviving and thriving today?
That's a great question. We actually opened our studio during COVID. So when we started, we were teaching at some big fitness facilities, and we train instructors to teach. And that's even changed a little bit. We used to train instructors to teach our branded format called Club Vibe. Yes. Now we have a very open dance fitness training. It's called Dance Fit Pro. And basically, we teach any type of dance instructor. It's a non-branded training. So anybody can do it. They can teach any format that they want. We're accredited by 2 national fitness organizations, both ACE and AFA. So instructors, whether they're brand new, wanting to learn how to be a dance fitness professional, or they're experienced and they're looking for continuing education, we've got this all-inclusive one-day training. And then we also offer our content, which is all of our choreography that anybody can use, even if they're not teaching our branded format. For example, if somebody taught just a regular generic cardio dance class, they can have access to all of our Vibe choreography, and they can use it in any class. Zumba allows you to make up your own and use different choreography. If you're a Zen instructor, they can also use our choreography. So it's really open for everybody. In doing that, Kelly and I travel and we do national fitness conferences. And one of the struggles that we had is because our brand is smaller outside of Georgia, people would like it when they saw it at a conference, but then there were no local classes for them to take it. And they'd be interested, and then it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. So Kelly and I made the decision to start doing one live stream class a week. And we actually were doing it in a studio that's in my house. And we were just doing it for the sake of when we go to conferences, we can give people the information, they can get to it on our website. And if they want to see our class, they can go in and take it live stream. Well, we started that in October of 2019. And we had no idea that in March of 2020, the world was going to shut down.
Yeah.
And at that point, we had already ironed out some kinks with how we were going to live stream, what equipment we were going to use. Over those months, we had gotten invested in better equipment. We made a lot of mistakes. We figured a lot of stuff out, and there were no resources at that time. And nobody was saying use this camera, use this microphone. We were just figuring it out ourselves. So when our fitness facility shut down and they said, don't come to work, we're closed, we reached out to our community and they were like, can you guys do more than one class a week? Can you live stream? So we started teaching 2, 3, 5 classes in my studio at my house.
Right.
And then the problem became that with COVID, when the children were allowed to go back to school, Kelly and I both allowed our kids to go back to in-person school. And then there would be an exposure. And because Kelly and I were doing the classes together, if I had an exposure, she couldn't come near me. So then we started thinking, doing it in my house is problematic. And we ended up with this opportunity to open an off-site studio. And it was my son goes to batting lessons at a local office park. And they just happened to have an available personal, it was a physical therapy studio that had been vacant. And the coach of the hitting coach was friends with my husband. And he's like, do you think your wife would want to sub-rent this space?
Wow.
So we went to look at it and we're like, not our dream studio, but this will do for now. And we renovated it ourselves. We painted, we put in new floors, we created a lobby. We did a lot of work to it to really make it a very special hidden little gem. And from there, we opened to the public a year later. So for a year, we taught in that studio, but we only did live stream because there was still a lot of concern about COVID and exposure. And some places were open and some weren't, and everybody was masked. So we chose to just teach and only do it live stream. And then at about a year in 2021, in July, we felt like it was the time that it was safe to start opening our studio. It's a small space. We can have about 15 people in the studio, but we decided to open with only 6 participants so that everyone would have enough space. We got an incredible air system that cleans the air. And the beauty of owning your own studio and a woman-owned business, I think especially, is it is immaculate.
Of course.
It is so clean. It is very different from when we used to go and have to like walk into a gym where lots of other people have been and there's been a mess and we've got to clean. Our studio is like literally spotless. It's gorgeous. So we've really enjoyed that. And from there, we started adding more classes. We've gotten involved with Northside Hospital, and we are we're supporting bariatric patients now.
Wow, congratulations, Allie. That's
you.
a big deal.
Thank you. Kelly and I have both recently got seat certified. So we're offering seated workouts. We have a lot of on-demand workouts that are available on our website. And part of that was also acknowledging that so many people with gyms closing, and, you know, a lot of people suffered from getting out of shape, putting on COVID weight, just having self-esteem issues and really struggling and feeling like they've done something wrong because they haven't worked out. So we're like, you know, where can we meet people where they are and maybe encourage and inspire them to like just start with baby steps? So we created this program called Mission to Move, where we have 15-minute movement sessions. And we have kickboxing, bar, strength, dance, recovery, all these different formats where it's only 15 minutes and we show a standing and a seated option side by side. And it includes a quick warm up, a quick recovery, and then just some light movement so that people can start to like work their way back and not feel bad that they've got to go to an hour-long intense class and then feel like they can't be successful. So we created that program. And then we've also gotten involved with some active aging communities, and we're working on getting our seated program in local like housing and also even Section 8 housing where people can't afford fitness programs. So we're trying to work through a give back program where we give discounted options like that to communities that are in need. So really, it's amazing how such a tiny little studio is reaching so far beyond into the community, doing great things. But as you said earlier, like we're just vessels, like none of this is our doing, you know, like we're just doing God's work through our beautiful studio and our amazing community and asking him every day, like, what now? Where do you want us to go? What do we do? Who do we serve? And really, like, I talk to my husband about this a lot and my pastor, this is our mission.
It is.
Like God put us here to do this for the people that are on the other side, just for that reason.
That's right.
And so many, in a good way, but also in a, it hurts my heart how many conversations I've had with friends who have gotten diagnosed with cancer after me. The numbers are really frustrating. It can be disheartening at times. I probably talk to several people every month that I just got diagnosed. I just got diagnosed. And just trying to share like what I've learned. I always share my resources, the website for the things, and my holistic practitioner. And just even, you know, here are 3 things that I've learned that I do every day, if this will begin to start to help you on your journey. I have an infrared sauna in my home that was part of my treatment. I had been paying to go for years to get these sauna treatments. And finally, my husband said, we could have bought and paid for a sauna by now. Let's just get one.
Wow.
And I have some friends who are battling cancer right now that I invite to come to my house and just use the sauna. And when they're here, we always try to like, okay, let's pray. Let's here's another thing that you could do from the holistic side of things to help you on your journey. My friends who are coming to the house right now, one of them has like a metastasized breast cancer, and the other one has leukemia. It's not even breast cancer, but so it's definitely a blessing. It's a blessing to have the knowledge and the resources and the experiences. But it never fails to hurt my heart when I get that phone call or that message that somebody that I know and love and care about is now beginning to go through this, because having gone through it, I mean, you certainly wouldn't wish it on anybody.
I'm sure.
I mean, especially just more like the physical, the surgery is pretty intense, and like going through that is hard. And then there's also, you will forever have that thought in your head that cancer did grow in your body, and it does metastasize. So it's a constant work, I guess you could say, for me to continue to you are healthy, you are strong, you are surviving, you are thriving.
That's right.
It's in God's hands.
That's right.
You got to just surrender it all. Surrender the thoughts, because there's that. The evil one is out there trying to fill your brain with those thoughts that are lies, and you have to learn to not listen to it and to continue to feed the positive side of your brain.
That's right.
With the truth, and the truth is it is all in God's hands, and you just don't know what's going to happen.
Pull out those scriptures, whatever it takes, everything positive in and around. So, Ally, as we get ready to wrap up here, 2 quick questions, and then this has been absolute. I've really enjoyed this, but real quick, before we close out, I gotta ask you, with everything that you've been through with cancer and everything, what would be the one thing at this moment that really scares you? Because you're a survivor, a 5-year survivor of cancer, and your family support. But if you're to think, you know what, I haven't conquered this. This is still something I'm dealing with, whether it's business or in your life, what would that be?
I guess I've really worked to move beyond fear. So when fear creeps in of any kind, it's the pray, surrender, put it in God's hands. So I try not to have any fear. The one thing that I do struggle with is, as I said, and it brought a tear to my eye, is thinking about my friends who are currently struggling, and then also knowing that there will be more. And, I guess it wouldn't really be a fear, but more a concern that I always pray for God to give me the wisdom and the words, work through me so that it's His words, not mine.
Amen,
and,
sister.
That's hard, because we're human and we make mistakes. And, I guess the fear would be that I would say or do something to not truly help somebody the way that He wants me to help them. So, I try not to let that fear even, fear is, it's thoughts.
It is
thoughts, and it's lies, and it's not true. So I'm not afraid to die. I know where I'm going. I would hope, I guess the fear would be that I wouldn't be here for my children, and for the big important things in their lives. That obviously we all would like to grow old, and I want to have babies and grandbabies, or I want to have grandbabies. I'm done with babies. Strike that from the record. But I want to be here for my children and for their struggles and their difficult times. And I want to see and meet my grandchildren and my great grandchildren. And I guess I don't fear that I won't be here for that. Like, should cancer ever come back for me personally? But it's all in his hands. So
That's right.
yeah. And I know that I am confident that both myself and my children are all going to the same place. Like, praise God, someday, and we're going to be together for eternity. So
Right.
I think that when you have faith, and it doesn't mean that fear doesn't creep in, but faith has to trump the fear. And it really is, my fear is that other people won't experience that faith, and that they won't be in that place where they're saved should something like this happen to them. And that I would hope that God would inspire me to share what he wants me to share, because I know ultimately you can only share what you're inspired to share, but then he has to do the rest of it to bring them to where they need to be.
There you go.
So I would just, my deepest prayer is that every human will come to know the Lord and never have to go through anything like this or anything else for that matter, and feel like they're alone, because we're never alone.
Allie, you hit the nail perfectly on the head. That was awesome. Allie, as we're getting ready to wrap up here, talk to our listeners about how they can find the club and you online, and any other last parting comments before we wrap up for today.
Sure. Look, I get so emotional when I talk about God.
It's a beautiful thing. It's love.
It is. And they're not sad tears. They're happy tears.
They're very happy tears. It's a beautiful thing.
They are. It is. So if you are looking to find us, everything is under the name Experience Vibe, VIBE Fitness. Experience Vibe Fitness. So we are on, that is our website, is experiencevibefitness.com. And we are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Our TikTok account is hilarious. We've recently partnered with Shazzy Fitness, which is a faith-based dance fitness format. We are now the choreographers for Shazzy, and we're also the fitness trainers for Shazzy. Shazzy Fitness has I think the best-selling Christian dance fitness DVD. And they do have a small army of instructors who are out teaching the brand. But the woman who created the program is a friend, and she was taking our classes at the local gym where we met you. And she just came to us and said that her life was moving her in another direction in terms of work, and she was unable to continue to manage everything. So she asked if we would then take over the training and the choreography.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So when we do our Dance Fit Pro training, anybody who goes through our training, and the training is on a website. So if you go to the website and you go to take a class, you can come to our studio and take a class, or you can participate in classes live stream. Or if you're interested in becoming an instructor, you can go to teach a class. And then if you click on training, you can read about Dance Fit Pro, Shazzy Vibe, and Club Vibe. So we will train people to teach our branded format. But first and foremost, now we're just trying to rise up amazing dance fitness professionals so that they can be supported and go on to teach whatever it is they're called to do, whether it's Shazzy, Club Vibe, Zumba, like whatever it is. Their own, some people are out there just teaching like a cardio funk class, and there's no brand, in which case they can make up their own choreography. They can find it on YouTube, or they can use ours if they're interested. So we're just really trying to support both the community that wants to work out and exercise and have fun and get fit and be part of a very loving, caring group. And then also those who feel like their passion is leading them to teach and inspire others. So we kind of do both. It's kind of two worlds, but it can all be found on our website. And if anybody who's listening to this wants to try our classes, there is a free trial with our membership. So you can actually do 2 weeks of all of our live stream, all of our on-demand for free before you start paying. And memberships start at $19 a month. And that includes all of our classes. So you can take every live stream class, every on-demand class. And
Awesome.
then we have memberships that include coming to the actual physical studio, and there are different prices there depending on how often you want to come. And then you can drop in anytime too. So if anybody's ever in the Atlanta, Cumming, Alpharetta, Johns Creek area, we're right off of 400, and we're exit 13. We're just like minutes off the exit. And you would never find us if you were just trying to drive by, because we're hidden in an office park, but it's worth the directions if you come. And I can promise that whether you join us online or in person, like, you will be loved on, that's for sure.
That is for sure. Allie, my friend, my fellow instructor, my god sister.
I miss you.
I miss you too, friend. I miss you too. This has been such a pleasure, and thank you for showing up today and bringing everything. As I said earlier, you are living and walking in your calling, and I adore you, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. So are you, my friend. So are you.
Thank you.
You're listening to Empress Conversations podcast with your host, Maggie Peary. Conversations with Maggie. Yeah, yeah. Empress. Join us next time on the next episode of Empress Conversations with Maggie. To learn more about guests or for more information on working with Maggie, go to www.empressconversationswithmaggie.com/get-started.